What's going on, my homies? Jolt here from TheTokenMinorities, and I am back with the Round 1 playoff game for GBA Season 9, where your KC Jirachiefs are taking on pretty much our nemesis at this point in the GBA, and that is Aster J. Not nemesis in the bad way, more so in a rivalry way, to where we haven't actually beaten him in draft format before, which is pretty crazy. We've played 3 times and haven't been able to pull it off, so this is going to be another opportunity for us to try to knock this man off. He was actually the last person that we lost to in this season of the GBA way back in week 5, so we're going to see if we can knock him off here in round 1 of the playoffs. But just for a little bit of an overview, for those of you who may not be super familiar with the playoff picture for this season of the GBA, we are the 2 seed, the 2nd seed in our conference. Aster is the 3 seed, and the winner of our game will move on to take on the winner of the number 1 seed, Randy, the coach of the Houston Team Rockets, and the number 4 seed, my man Danza, the coach of the Los Angeles Nido-Kings. So those are the 4 teams that are competing in this half of the playoff bracket. The other half of the bracket has MV against Lars in round 1, and then Leo against Old Man Tup in round 1 as well. Those 4 guys will duke it out to see who can make it to the finals from that conference. So just a little bit of a breakdown on what's going on here, but we are, of course, have to start with this game against Aster if we want to claim that title here to close out the generation. So that's exactly what we're going to try to do. Make sure to go check out Aster J's channel if you haven't already. Love his content, love his builds. His builds are really creative, and he's just fun to listen to. So just make sure to go check him out, especially his side of this battle and his other matches throughout the season. I think you will definitely appreciate those. So with that said, let's go ahead and talk very briefly about the matchup here. Make sure to check out the team builder if you haven't already. That'll be linked down in I think the first line of the description below. I went into a lot of detail on this team because it is a playoff build. I think I owe you guys that much for playoff teams to go into as much depth as possible, so that I can help you guys learn, I guess, how I think when I build, and maybe help you guys improve your own building as well. But anyway, make sure to check that out. But very briefly, the team that I am bringing is a Flame Warp Meloetta with a lot of bulk investment and 3 coverage moves, just basically trying to burn something on turn 1. I think his most likely switch-ins don't really like getting burned, so it's my dedicated lead in this matchup. Then I have a Pivot Goodra, just a 4 attacks leftover set to help me switch him better to the Rotom and other members of his team. Gooey is really nice to slow down some of his potential offensive threats. Then Groudon, which is my primary win con in this game, is a Rock Polished, Solar Beam, Precipice Blades, and Stone Edge set with an Expert Belt. Does a lot of damage to his team, very solid win con. Then I have the Mew, which is a physically defensive variant with Toxic Scald, Roost, and Stealth Rock as probably my most reliable Stealth Rocker in this game. Then I have the Mega Aerodactyl, which is a bulky Roost, Pursuit, Stone Edge, Fire Fang set to help me break down his team and deal and potentially Pursuit Trap the Lunala that he actually didn't bring, which is kind of surprising. And then I have the Magearna. My backup win condition in this game is Shift Gear, Iron Head, Dazzling Gleam, and Shadow Ball, kind of physically defensive set that, again, just matches up really well against this team, especially now that he did not bring the Nidoqueen, which was going to probably be his best possible response to the Magearna. So because there's no Nidoqueen, the Magearna might actually be an even better win condition than the Groudon here in this game. But we'll have to see how this game plays out. But Aster decided to bring the Mega Mawile, Tyranitar, Stoutland, Salamence, Rotom Wash, and the Tornadus T. Not at all the team I was expecting, but I've come to expect that from Aster as well over the past few times I have played him. He never really brings the kind of team that I'm expecting him to bring. I just didn't expect Lunala to not come to his playoff games. So the fact that I'm not seeing Lunala is actually super nice for me, in my opinion, especially for my Groudon, as the Lunala with its Shadow Shield up is one of his best ways to deal with the Groudon that I brought. And the fact that he didn't bring the Lunala in this game really potentially could free that up and puts a lot more pressure on his Salamence, really, to be his his check to my Groudon, as he really is going to have to cycle Intimidates to be able to keep that thing in check, I believe. Looks like he opted to go with more of a sand offense approach in this game too, which is pretty interesting. I do have a couple really good ways to deal with that in both of my Ubers, the Magearna resisting its stab and the Groudon changing the sand to sun, and then I do have the Mega Aerodactyl, which can of course resist the normal stab as well. So I'm curious to see what type of set that is. When I saw that at preview, I was really surprised because I really did not expect to see Stoutland in this game. Like, I seriously did not. I thought it was actually less likely than Registeel to come just because of my Ubers being naturally good responses to it, but he opted to bring it, probably trying to throw me off here in this game, and we'll just have to see how that works for him here in this matchup. So with that said, let's go ahead and hop right on into this match here, as like I already mentioned, my dedicated lead in this game is going to be the Meloetta, as that's going to be able to hopefully fire off a nice flinged Flame Orb against whatever his lead is. He does opt to lead off with Togevor, which is the Mega Mawile, and that's a really good lead matchup for me. Now, there is the possibility that he could have the Sucker Punch, and he could potentially go for that on turn 1. It actually has about a 50% chance to knock me out if he is a max attack Mega Mawile, but I don't think he's going to make that play on turn 1. Most people don't really go for Sucker Punch on turn 1, as there's a lot of different things I could potentially do on this turn, and Fling is probably not one of them in his mind. And fortunately, we are able to get the burn off on the Mega Mawile on turn 1, which is absolutely fantastic, as this is looking like his best physical breaker on the team that he brought. So he's just going to go straight for the Play Rough, which is a solid play on his end. It's actually going to do under half to my Meloetta, which was actually a little surprising. I thought it would do a little more damage, so that tells me this might not actually be a max attack Mega Mawile, or it might be Jolly, or maybe that was just a really low roll. I'm not really sure. Regardless, I'm going to make the switch into my Mew. This is a physically defensive Mew, especially with the Mega Mawile burned. This should be able to switch into it really easily, and as you can see, it only did a net of about 45 HP of damage to me with that Play Rough, which is pretty surprising coming out of a Mega Mawile. But anyways, I'm going to just fire off a Toxic, expecting him to switch out the Mega Mawile into either his Rotom or into his Torn T, or even the Salamence. In any case, the Toxic made a lot of sense on that turn. He does go into the Torn T, so we're going to be able to get a status on that as well. So two of his more annoying Pokemon are statused here pretty much right out of the gate. So that's a really good start for us here in this game, as I'm going to go into my Goodra as a pretty safe pivot. I thought he might just go for a U-turn or a knockoff, and in either case, the Goodra is able to take that hit relatively well. I'm going to be able to scout out what his investment is, and maybe just give me more insight as to what type of Torrentee this is. This is a potential Z captain on his team. It could potentially have the Z Iron Tail, and that U-turn damage showing that it's actually a timid, or at least an uninvested U-turn tells me it's probably not a physical variant of Torrentee, probably more of a special Z move attacking, like Z Hurricane or something like that. But anyways, he is going to go into his T-Tar. I'm actually invested to outspeed T-Tar with my Goodra, and I'm packing the superpower as well, so I'm going to just fire that straight off without hesitation, just clicking it immediately, as I don't expect it to be a Chople Berry set, more likely a Smooth Rock, or maybe like a Lumberry or something for the potential Will-O-Wisp Mew is what I expected on the T-Tar if he brought it. As I'm just going to go for the superpower. He makes a nice scout play and goes into his Torn T just to see if I have the superpower, I imagine, but that damage is nice against this, as it's going to also be taking the damage from his own Sand as well as from the Toxic as well, and I'm outside of range of anything he could possibly go for on this turn, so I'm just going to stay in once again and fire off a Dragon Breath, just expecting him to maybe try to pivot through his Rotom, and if I can get some damage off on the Rotom with the Dragon Breath, that'll put it in guaranteed range most likely of my Groudon Solar Beam later on in the game. But he makes a nice play and goes hard into his Mega Mawile off of the U-turn, probably expecting a Draco Meteor if I had to guess. Unfortunately, not going to affect the Mega Mawile, but I'm going to go ahead and switch on out into my Mew here, knowing this thing is burned. It's really not a threat to my Mew whatsoever at this point, and he's going to make a nice double back into his Torn T, probably just to scout out what my switch-in was going to be into the Mawile. Also potentially looking for an opportunity to get off a knockoff against my Mew with this Torn T. I thought that was definitely something he can maybe try to do, and I always have that option of trying to go into my Mega Aerodactyl Aerodactyl on this thing, but I don't really want to risk him firing off something like a Toxic of his own, or maybe firing off still an Iron Tail. I think it might get Flash Cannon. I don't remember 100% on that. I don't think it gets Flash Cannon. I think it's just Iron Tail. Regardless, I really didn't want to take that damage with my Aerodactyl at this point in the game, so I'm just going to stay in and go for a Roost, expecting him to either U-turn, knock off, or fire off his Z move, and he does just pull a U-turn into his Salamence, which that's perfectly fine with me. I am rocking the Toxic on this set, and if I'm able to get a Toxic off on this Salamence, that could be really good news for my Groudon later on in the game, as this is looking like the only thing that can really stand in my way of potentially sweeping his team with the Groudon. As here he's going to pull a switch into his Rotom, which I thought was kind of interesting. I'm thinking he might have expected me to pull a switch into something else, or maybe he was just okay with letting his Rotom get Toxic by the Mew, as I was definitely going for Toxic on that turn. I don't think there's any real question on that. So anyway, be interested in hearing his thought process on that particular turn, but I am going to get the Toxic off on the Rotom, which is another Pokemon that I love getting that residual damage off against. So now his Momentum Core is both Toxic Poison in addition to taking some chip damage from his Sand, and that combination plus Stealth Rock, once I get them up, is going to really help with wearing down those Pokemon that are trying to pivot into my offensive threats. So anyways, I'm just going to go into my Goodra, expecting him to go for either a Volt Switch or maybe even a Trick with his Rotom, as the Mew is really proving to be an annoying Pokemon against this team, as he's just going to pull a Volt Switch into his Tornadus once again. Now here I'm really expecting him to go for a Z Hurricane if he has it, or maybe a knockoff, maybe U-turn. I don't really think he's going to U-turn here. I think he's going to go for more of an offensive move, just because I've shown him content to leave my Goodra in against this thing, or even switch Goodra into this over and over again. So I'm going to go into my Mega Aerodactyl. I do have a lot of bulk investment. If he goes for a Z move, I should be able to take it, unless that's a Z Iron Tail. And he does just go straight for the knockoff, which obviously isn't going to do very much to a bulky Aerodactyl, even though I'm not Mega Evolved yet. But here I'm going to go ahead and Mega Evolve. I could have clicked Pursuit to try to get that extra damage off on the Torn, but I did expect him to try to go either into his Mawile or into his T-Tar. If he went into the Mawile, the combination of Stone Edge and Fire Fang would probably be able to knock it out. And if he goes into his T-Tar, this Stone Edge damage will put it in guaranteed range of a +1 Magearna, or at least should put it in guaranteed range of a +1 Magearna, but unfortunately we are going to miss that Stone Edge, but you know, that's Stone Edge for you. It does happen, unfortunately. But anyway, I'm going to go into my Groudon now, expecting the T-Tar to probably go for a Rock move if he has it, or maybe Stealth Rock as well if that's his rocker of choice in this game. That's exactly what he does. He goes for the Stealth Rock, and now I have my my threat inside here against this Groudon. I'm expecting him to use Salamence as his initial switch into this Pokemon, maybe even the Rotom, and in either case, this chip damage is what I need on both of those Pokemon for my Groudon to be able to win more effortlessly later on in the game. So I'm just going to go for the Stone Edge. I do fortunately catch the Salamence on the switch-in, which is really nice. I also have a nice switch into the Salamence and a full health Mew that should always be able to deal with this thing. I was expecting this to be a little bit bulkier here in this game as a way to deal with stuff like Breloom and Scolipede, kind of like he brought last time around. I thought that was a really smart bring on his end last time, and I definitely expected that to come again this week, and that's exactly what he is, with a slightly different set as he is running the Toxic on it this time around. But fortunately, despite the fact that my Mew gets Toxic, I am going to be able to synchronize that back onto the Salamence, and now I think 4 out of 6 of his Pokemon on his team are statused in some way with something that's really harmful to all those Pokemon. So I'm really pretty comfortable in the position that I am in, both offensively and defensively against this team. But anyways, I am just going to go for my Stealth Rock now with the Mew, knowing this is my best opportunity to get them up, and it'll continue to pressure and punish his Volt Switch users and his Salamence for trying to switch into my offensive threads and trying to pivot around my team. Stealth Rocks are just really good against Aster at this point in the game, but we are able to get those up. I'm going to just go for a Roost just to kind of scout what he wants to go for, as I don't really fear anything. It has the Toxic Poison on him at this point, so even if he goes for something like a Dragon Dance, one, I don't think he has enough slots left on this set to be able to hit my entire team neutrally, just because of the other moves that he has revealed, the Roost and the Toxic. But 2, I think it's more likely that he's just going to go for a Heat Wave, as that's probably the only offensive move he has on this thing, just like he had last time around. But anyway, I'm going to pull a double now into my, not really a double, but expecting him to switch, I'm going to to pull a switch of my own into my Groudon, as his only 2 plays on that turn, in my opinion, were to roost with the Salamence or double or switch into his Tyranitar to try to set the sand and potentially Pursuit Trap my Mew. So I'm going to pull the switch into my Groudon, expecting him to make one of those 2 plays. He does make the switch into his Tyranitar, which is really good for me, as now I'm going to go ahead and fire off the Rock Polish, revealing what my set is almost in its entirety, honestly. As once you see Rock Polish against a team like this, you have to kind of know what type of coverage moves are coming. Solar Beam he might not be expecting, but even so, the combination of Precipice Blade and Stone Edge is really obvious coming from the Groudon. So I am going to just be able to fire off the Stone Edge. Fortunately, we connect, and we're going to knock out the Salamence, taking down the first Pokemon here in this game. But now he's going to go into his Torn T, which I thought was pretty interesting. That's basically telling me that he's either really bulky Torn T with a Z move, or he's banking on a Stone Edge miss. Fortunately, I don't miss the Stone Edge, and the Torn T is going to drop. So maybe he wasn't expecting me to be Expert Belt on the Groudon. That's a possibility as well. If I wasn't an Expert Belt set, he probably had a chance to live the hit, so that might have come into play here on that turn. But now he's going to go into his T-Tar, probably to get rid of the Drought. I'm guessing he, well, I mean, obviously the Rotom wouldn't be able to knock out my Groudon at this range with the Hydro Pump because of the Drought, so that's probably why he didn't try to go into that. I wish he went into that, because I would have been able to fire off the Solar Beam and knock that thing out, but, you know, that's how it goes. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss a Precipice Blades when I could have knocked out the T-Tar on that turn, I think almost guaranteed, depending on his investment, but he's going to be able to dodge that and hit me with a crit Earthquake, which still kind of bounces off Groudon, which is kind of funny. But now he's going to go into his Rotom and to dodge the Precipice Blades again, which is totally fine. Get some nice chip damage off on the Rotom from Rock, Sand, and the Toxic Poison. Now it's definitely going to be in range of my Groudon's Solar Beam later on in the game, so that's really nice. I'm going to just sack off my Meloetta here to the likely Hydro Pump, as if he locks into Hydro Pump, that'll give me a pretty free opportunity to go into my Goodra and do more damage against him at that point, or maybe even go into something like my Mew, or honestly even Magearna if I want to try to set up on this. I probably can, but this probably isn't the best time to try to set up with Magearna. There's other times I can set up with Magearna, potentially even against this Burn Mega Mawile. So I'm going to fire off a Focus Blast, expecting him to either try to knock me out with a Hydro Pump or go into one of his other Mons that are going to be 2-hit KO'd by it. Unfortunately, we're going to miss the Focus Blast against the Mega Mawile 2, and I'm going to fire off another one, which barely misses out on the KO, and he's going to reveal the rest. So that I did not expect. That tells me this might be a Rest Sleep Talk Mega Mawile, which might also explain why the Play Rough did a little bit less damage earlier. Maybe it's more like bulk invested than I would have otherwise anticipated. But anyways, he is going to switch out his Mawile now to preserve its health and just go into his Rotom, probably hoping to dodge this Focus Blast as well, but I'm clicking Focus Blast like every single day of the week in that position, and Rotom is going to drop to the Meloetta, putting us in a really good position still in this game. I think we are up 6-3 at this point, so this is a commanding position. We have to make sure we don't let him get any form of offensive momentum, and because of that, I'm going to go ahead and safely sack off this Meloetta on the off chance he was like a sub Life Orb or a sub Expert Belt, some form of subset on the Stoutland. I wanted to make sure I stayed in an attack that just in case something like that were to happen, but Stoutland also locking into Return and not showing the Life Orb tells me it's probably Choice Banded, and this tells me I should be able to pretty safely set up with my Magearna right here. So I'm going to go straight for the Shift Gear, and it's going to double my speed and give me +1 attack. I am running the Iron Head on this set, and I have a little bit of attack investment to help me have a better chance of dealing with some of these other Pokemon that are going to otherwise switch in well to my special coverage options. So I'm just going to go straight for the Iron Head. It should do almost half to this Mawile depending on his bulk investment, and as you can see, it has a decent chunk to it there. He is going to reveal the Sleep Talk, which is not surprising considering he did have the rest on this set. He's going to just fire off a Play Rough, and it's going to do a decent amount of damage. Unfortunately, going to get the attack drop as well, which means I have no chance of being able to knock this thing out on the next turn unless I'm able to get a nice flinch on him. And if I can flinch him here on this turn, that would be phenomenal, as we do actually get the flinch, which was kind of interesting too. I wasn't actually sure on the mechanics, and I probably should know this, but I wasn't sure. If you get a flinch against a Pokemon that is sleeping after going for rest, I didn't know whether or not that would actually account for one of the 2 turns that it's guaranteed to be asleep. And I don't know if Aster didn't know either, based upon that play of going for sleep talk again. I'm guessing he didn't know either, but I think he had only burned 1 turn of sleep with his Mawile aside from that flinch. So I guess now you guys know. I learned something here in this game, but we do get the flinch on the second Iron Head, and we're able to take out the Mawile with the Magearna as well. We're looking pretty healthy at this point. All he has left is the Sand Core, neither of which likes dealing with the Magearna, so he's going to go into his T-Tar to set the sand because he pretty much has to, but we should be able to pick up this game here as long as we don't horribly choke, I think, at this point in the match. But I'm going to just go straight for the Iron Head, as there's nothing the T-Tar can do to knock me out in 1 hit. As he does survive, he's going to fire off an Earthquake and do a good chunk of damage to me. I was packing the Dazzling Gleam on this set. I figured Iron Head would do a little more damage to the T-Tar because I was at +1 and he had the sand up. I wasn't 100% sure. I didn't actually calc that in the middle of the match, but even so, a couple Iron Heads will be able to knock out the T-Tar, and now it is Stoutland versus the world, probably Choice Banded, and with all of the different Pokemon I have left on my team, I have ways to deal with pretty much any coverage move that he could try to lock into. We can't lock into Superpower because I have a Mew. We can't lock into Fire Fang because I have a Goodra and I have a Mega Aerodactyl. He can't lock into Return because it doesn't knock out the Magearna. He can't lock into Earthquake because I have a Mega Aerodactyl. So this should pretty much be checkmate. Then this Dazzling Gleam should have had a chance to knock him out, I think, from that range too, but that's what I get for not really being a especially offensive invested Magearna. The Stoutland is going to be able to survive the +2 Dazzling Gleam, but we are going to be able to survive the Fire Fang as well. Fire off another Dazzling Gleam, and the curse is finally broken. We've been able to break through against Aster and knock him off with a 5-0 victory in the GBA quarterfinals. So that is the game. Great game to Aster. Obviously really happy with this result. Been trying hard to beat Aster now for the past three games, and this is finally the first time we've been able to break through. So what a time to break through here in the quarterfinals, and yeah, so really happy about that. Again, make sure to go check out his side of the match as well. Make sure to answer the question of the day down below, which I don't think I've actually asked this season, and if I have asked this already, then I will end up changing the question of the day. But let me know what you guys think about Magearna in draft format. I don't think I've asked this already, but I don't know. I feel like I should have already asked this. But Magearna finally picking up a sweep. It took a while to finally get a Magearna sweep in this season, but this was definitely the right set for the matchup. Matched up super well against the mons that he brought in this particular game. So yeah, let me know what you think about Magearna in draft format. Some people, Gypsy King, have used Magearna incredibly well in a bunch of other leagues, and there's a reason why Magearna often gets banned in standard draft format play, but some people argue that it is totally fine to include in a standard draft league, especially when it doesn't have access to Z moves. If my Magearna had access to Z moves, I'm telling you right now, there are several other sweep opportunities I could have had this season if I just had access to a Z move. So Z moves make a huge difference on Magearna because they pretty much guarantee that you can get a Soul Heart boost. And when you can't run a Z move, then Magearna has a few more limitations, but it's still really bulky and hard to take down. And you could just see it here in this game. It shoot a super effective hit from 2 Pokemon with high attack stats back to back. Okay, it took them really easily. Earthquake from T-Tar, Fire Fang from Banded Stoutland, chewed it easily. In addition to a player up from a huge Power Mega Mawile. So yeah, Magearna just really fat, easy to set up with, a lot of setup opportunities, pretty good coverage moves. Just a really good Pokemon. Let me know what you guys think about Magearna in draft format in the comments below. But as for us, our season is not yet over. We have another game coming up here next week in the GBA semifinals. I will not reveal who I am playing quite yet because I don't want to spoil any other games that will be happening, but we are playing the winner of the game between Danza and Randy, the Los Angeles Nidokings and the Houston Team Rockets. Whoever wins that game will be our opponent in the semifinals next week, so I hope you guys are looking forward to that. I know I am. It's either going to be a TTM rematch or it's going to be another chance at redemption against the other player who beat us earlier on in the season in Randy. So either way, I'm going to be happy with who we're going to be against. And yeah, really excited for that. Really excited to finally come out on top against Aster. And yeah, only 2 more games to go. We'll see if we can grab that title here for this season. But thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you all next week. Peace.